Hey guys, I'm JC and today we're playing Obeka Brute Chronologist. This deck wants to cheat or cast big creatures into play, clone them with haste, and then hit our opponents hard, all the while abusing end step and DTB triggers with Obeka. If you want to build this deck yourself, then make sure to stop by the channel where we have a deck as well as other gameplay videos showing how the deck was built as well as how it plays out. In addition, we also have a Discord group with the channel dedicated specifically to Obeka, so if you'd like to discuss the deck further, make sure to check out the link in the description below. Let's see just what's possible when you play with time. Okay guys, let's see who we're playing today. We have Rocco, Caberetti Caterer, we have Koma Cosmos Serpent, and we have Rakdos the Showstopper. Alright, so if we take a look at this opening hand, I do like it quite a bit actually, mainly just because we have Faithless Looting, which is going to allow us to start filling our graveyard, and with Animate Dead in hand, we might be able to cheat out something pretty big pretty early, so I think we'll keep this and we'll see how we go. Koma starts the game by playing a land for turn, and then they pass the turn. Rakdos plays a land, next they cast a Mana Crypt, and then they pass the turn to us. And we draw a Rakdos Signet. Well, we'll start by playing our land for turn. Now we'll cast our Faithless Looting. And there we go, the magic gods are looking kindly on us today. We have an Archon of Cruelty as well as a land. So what we'll do is we'll discard the Archon, as well as our Tormenting Voice. And then we'll pass the turn from here. Rocco plays a tap land for turn, an Oran Reef the Vastwood, and that's going to be it for them. Koma plays a land, and then they cast a Rampant Growth. And then they pass the turn. On Rakdos' upkeep, Mana Crypt triggers. They lose the flip, taking 3 damage. Next, they play a Reliquary Tower, so they'll have no maximum hand size. And then they cast a Planar Chaos. At the beginning of your upkeep, flip a coin. If you lose the flip, sacrifice Planar Chaos. Whenever a player casts a spell, that player flips a coin. If they lose the flip, counter that spell. Well, that's not good news for us. We were really hoping to be able to land this Animate Dead on turn 2. So I guess now we've got a 50-50 chance of that happening. And then they pass the turn to us. And we draw a Polluted Delta. Well, let's start by playing our Sunken Ruins. Then let's leave the fate of whether this Animate Dead resolves or not up to the flip of a coin. Target our Archon of Cruelty. Let's see if this resolves. So that'll trigger Planar Chaos. We'll choose heads. And unfortunately it hits tails, so we lose the flip. Our Animate Dead goes to the graveyard, and we're just going to have to pass the turn from here. Rocco starts by playing a tap land. When it ETBs, it gains them 1 life. And then they pass the turn. Koma plays a tap land for turn. And then they attempt to cast a Beast Within, targeting the Planar Chaos. That triggers Planar Chaos. And they do win the flip. So Beast Within will resolve. Unfortunately, a turn too late for us. The Rakdos player gets the Beast token. And that is going to be it for the Koma player. On Rakdos' upkeep, Mana Crypt triggers. They win the flip. Next, they play a land. And then they cast a Rhystic Tutor. Unless any player pays 2, search your library for a card, put that card into your hand, then shuffle. And then they cast a Howling Mine. At the beginning of each player's draw step, if Howling Mine is untapped, that player draws an additional card. At least in this case, we're going to be the first player that benefits from Howling Mine. Now Rakdos does move to combat. The Beast token swings towards Koma. They take the damage. And that is it for their turn. We draw an Ancient Silver Dragon. We'll also draw a card thanks to Howling Mine. And that gets us into a Cursed Mirror. Okay, well, we'll play our Polluted Delta. We'll crack it. We'll put into play our Xander's Lounge. It'll come into play tapped. And then we'll cast our Rakdos Signet. But from here, we'll just pass the turn. On Rocco's draw step, Howling Mine triggers. Next, they play a land. And then they cast Numa Jiraga Chieftain. At the beginning of combat on your turn, you may pay XX. When you do, distribute X/1/1 counters among any number of target elves. And that is going to be it for them. On Koma's draw step, Howling Mine triggers. Then they play a land. And after that, they cast a Tribute to the World Tree. Whenever a creature ETBs under your control, draw a card if its power is 3 or greater. Otherwise, put 2/1/1 counters on it. Very good draw engine with Koma. But they are going to pass the turn from there. On Rakdos' upkeep, Mana Crypt triggers. They win the flip. On their draw step, Howling Mine triggers. They play a land. Next, they cast an Abrade, and it looks like they're targeting the Numa. Abrade deals 3 damage to target creature. Now they move to combat. The Beast token goes towards Koma once again. No, instead they decide to go towards Rocco. And then they're going to pass the turn to us. We draw a Ghostly Pilferer. Howling Mine also triggers on our draw step. And that gets us into a Talisman of Dominance. So we'll play our island. Next, we'll cast our Talisman. And then we'll cast our Ghostly Pilferer. And from here, we're just going to pass the turn. On Rocco's draw step, Howling Mine triggers. Next, they play a land. And And then they cast Lys Alana Huntmaster. Whenever you cast an elf spell, you may create a 1/1 green elf warrior creature token. And that is going to be it for their turn. On their end step, however, it looks like Koma casts a Worldly Tutor, search your library for a creature card, reveal it, then shuffle and put the card on top. And they find themselves an Adrix and Nev Twin Casters. Ward 2, if one or more tokens would be created under your control, twice that many of those tokens are created instead. And now we move to their turn. Now on Koma's draw step, Howling Mind triggers. Next, they cast a Whisper Silk Cloak. Equipped creature can't be blocked and has Shroud. But it looks like they're just going to leave their turn there. On Rakdos' upkeep, Mana Crypt triggers. They lose the flip. Now on their draw step, Howling Mind triggers. They play a land. Next, they cast a Rakdos Signet. And then they cast a Revel in Riches. Whenever a creature an opponent controls dies, create a treasure token. And at the beginning of your upkeep, if you control 10 or more treasures, you win the game. Well, that's a potential 1-card win con with Rakdos if they do cast it with a full board. So something we do have to be mindful of. Now they move to combat. Let's hope they do swing out here. And they do. They go towards the Rocco player. Rocco just takes the damage. And that is going to be it for the Rakdos player. We draw a Manamo, and Howling Mind also triggers on our draw step. That gets us into an Arcane Signet. Okay, well, we will start by playing our land for turn. Then we'll cast our Arcane Signet. Next, we'll follow that up with our Professional Facebreaker. And finally, we'll finish up by casting our Cursed Mirror. We'll have that come in as a copy of Professional Facebreaker. Now we'll move to combat. We'll send our Facebreaker towards the Koma player, and our Pilferer towards the Rakdos player. They take the damage. That triggers both of our Professional Facebreakers, giving us 4 triggers in total, making 4 treasures. Now in our second main phase, we'll cast our Commander. That resolves. And overall, I feel like that was a pretty good turn, so I think we can just end it there and pass it to the Rocco player. On Rocco's draw step, Howling Mind triggers. They play a land. Next, they cast a Woodland Champion, which triggers their Lys Alana Huntmaster. Whenever one or more tokens ETB under your control, put that many 1/1 counters on Woodland Champion. So make a 1/1 elf, and then the champion enters. Next, they cast a Wildborn Preserver. That triggers their Lys Alana Huntmaster once again. It has Flash Reach. Whenever another non-human creature ETBs under your control, you may pay X. When you do, put X 1/1 counters on Wildborn Preserver. So now I'm starting to get a little concerned because if the Rakdos player does actually cast their commander next turn and flips really well, they potentially are setting themselves up to win the game with that Revel in Riches. Of course, this Rocco deck looking like it's an elf tribal deck. Elves have to do elves, so they definitely have to get wide on the board. It is just a little concerning. So if we get the chance, we might have to take out the Rakdos player. Now they move to combat. The Huntmaster goes towards Rakdos. They just take the damage. And after all that, the Rocco player passes the turn. On Koma's draw step, Howling Mind triggers. They play a land. Now they cast their Adrix and Nev Twin Casters. When that ATBs, that triggers their Tribute of the World Tree. So Adrix and Nev will get 2 1/1 counters. And that's going to be it for them. On Rakdos' upkeep, Mana Crypt triggers. They lose the flip. Now on their draw step, Howling Mind triggers. They play a land. Now I think we see Rakdos come down. No, instead we see a Bolas' Citadel. You may look at the top card of your library any time. You may play lands and cast spells from the top of your library. If you cast a spell this way, pay life equal to its mana value rather than its mana cost. And you can tap, sacrifice 10 non-land permanents. Each opponent loses 10 life. This could be dangerous depending on how lucky they get off the top of their library. They have already played their land for turn, which they may not have wanted to do here, because hitting a land off your Bolas' Citadel always feels pretty bad, especially when you first play it. Now they start by casting a Terminate, and that's actually targeting Obeka. Destroy target creature, it can't be regenerated. Now because that is off the top of Bolas' Citadel, that also triggers our Ghostly Pilferer. So we will draw a card, and we just get ourselves a land there. There's nothing we can do about that, so Obeka does go down. We'll put it back in the command zone, that also triggers Revel in Riches. Now they play a Dockside Extortionist. When it ETBs, create X treasure tokens, where X is the number of artifacts and enchantments your opponents control, which is going to be a decent amount. Most of them unfortunately coming from us. But it looks like the Koma player has a response here, and they cast a counterspell. That resolves. And now it looks like they cast an Illicit Auction targeting Adrix and Nev, so that will trigger their Ward 2 ability, and it also triggers our Ghostly Pilferer. Each player may bid life for control of target creature. You start the bidding with a bid of 0. In turn order, each player may top the high bid. The bidding ends if the high bid stands. The high bidder loses life equal to the high bid and gains control of the creature. So it looks like they pay for the ward cost there. We get to draw a card. And we get ourselves a Sneak Attack, which is actually perfect with Ancient Silver Dragon. Just really too bad our commander isn't out at the moment. We'll bid 15 life here, because why not? We are partly a black deck, and having a token double is going to go really nice with our Professional Facebreaker. And it looks like we actually win the bid. Now Rakdos moves to combat. They decide to pass through combat. And now it moves to our turn. Ghostly Pilferer triggers on our upkeep. But we won't pay here. We draw ourselves an Ortheon. Howling Mine also triggers on our draw step. And we just get ourselves a land. So what we'll do is we'll start by playing our Prismatic Vista. We'll crack that. We'll go and find ourselves a mountain. Next, we'll play our Sneak Attack. Now we'll sneak in to play our Ancient Silver Dragon. Now we'll move to combat. We'll send all of our creatures except for Ghostly Pilferer towards the Rakdos player, because we can't let them get too much use out of that Bolas' Citadel. And I did make a promise earlier that I'd try to take them out if I could. And that actually causes them to scoop up, which unfortunately means we don't get to draw any cards off Ancient Silver Dragon, so that is a little bit of a shame there. It always makes it hard when people scoop right at that point where you need the combat damage trigger. So that's a pretty big play for us, unfortunately. It does mean that it's probably going to change the outcome of the game, more so in a negative way for us, but these things just happen when you play online. Unfortunately, you just have to take it on the chin and keep moving forward. So after that, we'll just finish up by casting our Ortheon. So I guess from here, we'll just pass the turn and really hope that we can keep our board state. Now when we move to our end step, Sneak Attack does trigger, so our Ancient Silver Dragon will get sacrificed. Rocco plays a land, and now they cast a Jiraga Warcaller, which triggers their Lissalana Huntmaster, and it's kicked 2 times. It ETBs with a 1/1 counter on it for each time it was kicked, and other elves you control get +1/+1 for each 1/1 counter on Jiraga Warcaller. Now that also triggers their Woodland Champion and their Wildborn Preserver. So they do pay X to give their Wildborn Preserver a 1/1 counter. The Woodland Champion gets bigger. Now when it ETBs, it also triggers Wildborn Preserver one more time, but they won't be able to pay. Now all their elves get a nice buff. Now they move to combat. Looks like we have 2 of the elves coming towards us. We're just going to take the damage, and that is going to be it for their turn. Koma starts by casting a Nature's Law. Then they follow that up with a Primal Vigor. If 1 or more tokens would be created, twice that many of those tokens are created instead, something we're very happy to read. If 1 or more 1/1 counters would be put on a creature, twice that many 1/1 counters are put on that creature instead. And that is going to be it for the Koma player. We do draw a land for turn. So we'll start by playing the Mountain. Next, we'll play our Ideas Unbound. That gets us a Feldon, an Ancient Tomb, and an Island. So now we'll activate Ortheon. With its 9 mana ability, we'll target the Professional Facebreaker. That is a lot of Facebreakers on the battlefield now. So we'll move to combat. We'll try to split them up evenly between our opponents. And it looks like Rocco's just blocking where they can. But luckily, the Facebreakers do have Menace. So they have to apply 2 each time. So we're definitely going to get a good amount of damage through. Now all I'm hoping here is that Magic Online doesn't crash, because we're going to be making a huge amount of treasures here. So there go all our triggers on the stack. Now I'll have to go through this manually 1 bit at a time. So I'll skip ahead for you guys so you can see the end result if we do get there and it doesn't crash. But it looks like the Koma player's actually seen enough and they've decided to scoop it up there, which is completely understandable. There's a lot of triggers on the stack and this takes an awfully long time on Magic Online to be able to resolve it all. And that there, my friends, is the result of all of those triggers. 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 83, 4, about 84 treasures right there. So now we're going to recast our commander. Then we'll cast our Faithless Looting with Flashback. Let's discard these lands. Now we'll start using Professional Facebreaker's ability. And look at that, the first one off the top is an extra turn spell. So let's cast that extra turn. I think once our opponent realizes we can do this, they're probably going to scoop it up. So I don't think we need to do anything else here. We're just going to pass to our next turn. Ideas Unbound and Ortheon both trigger on our end step. So we are going to have to sacrifice all of those Professional Facebreakers. But they will be coming back. Now we'll also have to discard 3 cards. So we'll discard everyone except for Feldon. We draw a land for turn. Let's start by using our Sneak Attack. We'll get Feldon into play with haste. Now we'll activate Feldon targeting our Ancient Silver Dragon. Now we're going to activate Ortheon. This time we're going to target our Ancient Silver Dragon. Now we'll move to combat. We'll swing in with all our Hasty Dragons. They block with the only creature they can. And that is the game done there, guys. Alright, let's go to the review and discuss what happened. So this game definitely had some swings for us. In the early game, we almost resolved a turn 2 Archon of Cruelty, but that was quickly shut down by the Rakdos player's Chaos card. From there, we had a solid mid-game, ramping well with our Mana Rocks as well as our Professional Facebreaker. Then when we drew that Sneak Attack with Ancient Silver Dragon in hand, we were about to flip the game on its head. Unfortunately, the Rakdos player scooped it up just before combat damage was dealt, which not only meant that we missed out on potentially drawing a lot of cards, but we also had to sacrifice that dragon at the beginning of the next end step. Luckily for us, with the Adrix and Nev that we won at auction combined with the Primal Vigor from the Koma player, we were able to use Ortheon to make a massive clone army of our Professional Facebreaker to take the win. Now while we certainly did win, and it was certainly a fun way to do so, I still would have loved to have seen what cards we would have drawn from our Ancient Silver Dragon. All of those cards combined with Sneak Attack would have resulted in a massive turn and a potentially even crazier way of winning this game. But I guess we'll never know. Well, that's it from me today. Although we still have one more game to showcase with Obeka, if you'd like to see more gameplay videos with this commander, make sure to let me know, because if you do, she will return sooner rather than later. Until next time, guys.